This is the English in English podcast.
That's Brett.
That's Eric.
And then we're back to our with only a week in between.
Yes.
So we've come up with a new slogan.
Life is no longer.
Because we realize we know what the world needs.
Right. It's not the podcast at once.
It's what it needs.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
Listen to me. Speaking of which, I've not seen the new Batman one. So
I've
heard have no review.
I was going to ask if you'd seen it. Because I know you see a lot of
I have put it off. I will see
stuff.
it, but this one I had no interest to see opening night.
I was recently at a party, and one of the guys who was, he's all into the comic book stuff, had a very thoughtful review of it. He said that he was in the first 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
He said it was like walkout worthy. Like
Yeah.
he was almost like, holy shit, this is fucking horrible.
Really?
And he said the ending was really strong, so that overall he would give it like a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
So still not great. But
Right.
average overall, but like really lopsided. Like some really good stuff and some really, really terrible stuff.
That would have exactly been my guess.
Right. And he said it's probably way too long.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be that long. And from what I've heard from other people, it's just a lot of too much trying to be... Sort of like what happened with the Superman movie. Like too much like trying to be philosophical, but
Right.
when you really don't need it.
Right.
And just makes it like
That
long
was
with
what
characters
was fun
like bloviating.
about the Captain America movie. It makes me kind of excited about the next one. It was just enough philosophical about important stuff.
Right. Well, it was about an actual message, not like we're going to try and make them come up with really crazy things
Right,
to say
yeah.
that sound deep.
Right, yeah.
Which
Really
is
crazy
yeah.
things. Like, look, I'll have a talk in a church.
Right.
Because we need to make Superman's like a
Yeah.
god. Yeah, like
Right.
deep.
You seeing
deep.
that?
You seen that?
What's the symbology there?
Right, yeah. Symbolism. I think the
Symbolism.
word you're looking for is symbolism.
I'm an expert in nameyology.
Right.
But I'm really stoked about Captain America. I can't
Yeah.
wait till that comes. And I'm actually, like we were talking
It's
about
had the best track record of the ones. Like the first
That's
one
true.
was decent and just fun.
The
Like
second one was amazing.
Second one was amazing, and
Right, because even the Avengers, first one was amazing. Second one was not very good.
it was just overblown.
I'd say it was
same problem
below
as I
average,
think
honestly.
the Batman.
It was
Superman movie.
overwrought,
Yeah.
a little contrived.
Right. Just they were trying to cram too much stuff in
Well,
there.
this is another example of instead of having like a great story, they're just trying to capture certain elements and then
Right.
going back and saying, how do we do this?
Right,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And like, it will include this, will include this. So it becomes a bunch of just
Yeah.
hodgepodge of these scenes pushed together instead of like someone actually came up with a great story.
Right. That happens to need every hero to show up.
Right.
They just we need to have every hero show up.
And honestly, that was what I was most impressed with the first Avenger, was the ability for them to use all the different characters and everything in a way that didn't feel contrived. I was really impressed with that.
That was... Won't go down the road too long because there's plenty more to talk about. But
Right.
I always contend that the first Avengers movies was one of the tightest plotted movies I've ever seen.
Right.
Like, not that much happens, quote unquote, because they really just capture Loki and then he uses the cube. But the cool thing
Right,
is that
exactly.
like, every scene pertains to either the people introducing the characters that are going to be in it, introducing the motivations and their style, and then bringing them together.
And a lot of times, all three.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
all three elements.
But I mean,
of
like,
the
you know,
scene.
I could not suggest a scene that could be cut from that.
Yeah, it was tight, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing superfluous, really.
Right. But anyway, while we're on the topic of media and stuff, why don't we jump right into Daredevil?
I was just going to ask you about that. I just finished it, yeah.
I completed it a little while ago, so, of course, the biggest thing on our minds, I'm sure,
Punisher,
is the
yeah.
Punisher. I thought, real quick, that I always thought that the guy that they got, Bernthal, was not a bad choice.
No, I don't
think he's not a bad choice. I think it's the same problem I had with the Kingpin, although in this season they kind of started doing the Kingpin a little better.
I was just going to say, I really like the Kingpin in this season
season,
better
yeah.
than the last
So
one. I think
maybe-
they realized, and they backtracked, like, the kind of a petulant, like,
Right.
big baby version of
Right,
him that they
exactly.
had.
It seems like they start off in a different direction, but then they kind of go in the direction you want, so maybe that'll happen with the Punisher. The only problem I had with the Punisher in this one is it wasn't so much that anything was done wrong, it was just this version of the Punisher was not the one I know and love in comics, which is, it's like, Punisher shows up. What's going to happen? He already has a plan. You know, like, you know how they make the jokes like, he's the goddamn Batman. Like, what does Batman do? How does he beat Superman? Because he's the goddamn Batman.
Right.
That was the Punisher. And like, how does he beat everyone?
And true, but I mean,
Because
at the
he's
same
goddamn
time, you can
Punisher.
say that they did that to some extent, like he was just doing crazy shit that they didn't really show you all the planning going into these operations.
Right,
And
you don't have
also,
to show the planning,
to be
but-
fair, this whole season was like his origin story.
Right, and I guess that's, like I said,
one-
you have to excuse that. It's just, it was a much more, like, emotional version of the Punisher than you normally see.
And the one thing that I don't like, and they've done this the Thomas Jane version too.
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
And it sort of goes back to the whole idea of what the Punisher is that they turn it into a revenge thing instead of like it was random violence that kills his family. That's why every criminal is fair game.
Right. If he's hunting the original groups that got his family,
that's a specific mission.
It makes it less impactful.
It's it's just a totally different mission.
Right.
Because once he kills them, that's it. Because they went through all these justifications in the show about why he should kill these people. Right. But the Punisher's out there to kill fucking everybody.
Right.
Like, it's more like Boondock Saints style.
Scum. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Who do we kill? All
of them. Yeah. But and that's why it's important that it was random.
Right.
But I mean, that's not enough to ruin a show, but it does change it.
It did. It had a very subtle, and I think too subtle, moment of that change in him. Like when he gets his. This is spoiler territory, by the way.
Yeah, if you're listening, we're going to.
If you're listening, we're going to have spoiler territory.
So go binge watch it like you're supposed to,
and then come back. Yeah, exactly. Like you were supposed to already. Damn it. The fact that the guy in charge of the drug deal that the cops were looking for ended up being his old commanding officer.
Right.
They had him, instead of like torturing him or anything, he just shot him.
Right.
You know, like they set it up like maybe he was going to go full ham on this, and then the guy even said something like, take it all out on me, and he just looks at him and says, you know what you taught me? One shot, one kill. And
I like that.
And it was like, it showed him like, it wasn't like he just like, just clean up the mess.
It's a job.
I'm just here to clean up the mess. But they could have made that a bigger deal. Like him having like that would have made the character better to me, as he went from having a bigger realization of I'm going from revenge to I'm here to clean up the streets.
Yeah, just to take care of business.
Right, yeah. I've chosen to be a force of...
And they almost did that with
the court scene, where he's like, "You want me to be the Punisher? Yeah. I'll be the Punisher."
Well, I'm saying they did it with the Kingpin character.
Oh yeah,
like he had that because I mean, like I really didn't like the character in the first season.
He was petulant.
Big bait, and like fearful too.
Right. He was like an agoraphobic, emotionally stinted.
And this one is much more. I was like, yes, this is like a criminal mastermind.
Right. Yeah.
Who's and they made it pretty clear what was awesome in this one was that like. He could even probably get out of prison whenever he wanted. Right, yeah. And he's not choosing not to because he's like, I don't need to.
Right, yeah, exactly. He owns every guard there.
Right.
Why don't he get out of prison?
And I thought it would have been better for the story if he was the blacksmith.
Yeah.
Because he was purposefully like, and got everyone together because he knew there would be a war and was going to wipe everyone out and everything like that. But that doesn't really matter. That's kind of irrelevant. But that would have been, to me, better.
But the one thing I did like about this change to the Punisher story was that they implicated part of the thing that happened to Punisher was a police botched operation and cover-up. Right. And they tried to pull life support on him, and then he came back to life, you know.
I mean, that's one of the more modern storylines. Because, in the originally he was like Vietnam. Now, obviously, it's way too far past that, so they have to go spec ops and stuff.
Right, but I think in one of the versions of the comics, he was wounded in the firefight too.
That's what I mean,
and
but
died
on
on the table.
That's one of the more. It's not like the original 80s.
Right. Yeah.
Which is cool. Yeah, I like that.
Right, but I mean, I liked it not so much for the died on the table and came back. Just adds a kind of weird mystery thing to it. Right. But there was also I liked the idea of the government messed up and said that's why part of his I used to be a soldier, but now nobody's doing it right. Even the cops aren't doing it right. Like I don't kill cops, but they are not doing this job right, so I'm going to be the Punisher.
Exactly.
And it gave a edgier motivation of not just I kill criminals, but just like you were weak, you're half measures.
Exactly. And also it was funny because we were just talking about that scene where he chains him up and gives him the gun. Right. And in the show. He uses his one shot to shoot the chain, which I thought was interesting and cool. But I still forgot to go back and look and see what happens in the comic. Because my recollection, see if you can find it. Because my recollection is that Daredevil tries to pull the trigger and it's empty. But it's either that or he just doesn't do anything and shoots neither and doesn't shoot at all.
Yeah.
But I thought it was kind of a cool idea that he in the show they tried because they used it word for word and then oh shit they mix it up. I found those frames. But I can't find the next one. What happened? Right, I have these comics. I'll have to just go look it up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think I can find it right now because now the internet is awash since this happened in the
right now it's just all the
it's all just stuff. Everybody's talking about it.
But I like the scene that came right after that. Obviously, the 5-minute battle scene through the stairwell and stuff. Yeah. And it's one cut.
The take on they did that because they got the famous hallway scene in the first season that everybody did the same thing.
Right.
And then they kind of did the Punisher version of that.
Yes, in the prison. That was awesome. Where they lock it and there's 8 dudes.
That's the moment.
And it's
I was like, okay, this guy's the Punisher. Yeah. Where they had that scene, like I said, the fact of him being more talkative than usual and everything else was kind of like, it's not the Punisher I'm used to.
But it's like you said, it's the very beginning. The guy's grappling with this stuff and everything.
Right, and also it's a new actor's take on the Punisher. But that scene where all of a sudden then he's covered in blood and the SWAT guys are coming in, like the riot police, and they just throw the tear gas in and he doesn't even move. He's just like staring at them, and they're like, okay, that's the Punisher.
Right, like the bloody face imprint on his shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, that was pretty good. Yeah. So
overall, I definitely liked it. And
I thought overall the season was strong again. It entertained me through.
I thought it was a little bit of a weak ending. Not terrible, but just kind of like, with like the rooftop scene. Like,
I thought
it showed like 150 ninjas,
it would have been cooler.
and then there was like 8 of them.
I was expecting and hoping as I was watching that the roof is just full of ninjas.
Punisher would open up with a minigun.
Like destroy half.
Like right when it was hopeless,
chance.
He's just like. And choose them
instead of showing up at the last second and like taking off the last 3 guys.
Yeah,
it would have made more sense that we got an army of ninjas. They're gonna make off with Elektra. We can't stop.
There's no way he can
and he chews down 50 of them,
or
and all of a sudden you got a
except
fighting
for Nobu
chance.
And like 4 or 5 other guys.
Right. Yeah. Now all of a sudden they got a fighting chance.
Right.
You know, like that would have been more impactful.
And one thing I didn't get,
budget probably constrained that.
I just think it was a decision on their part.
Yeah,
but. One thing I didn't understand, which is probably just left open more so than being like a hole, is that like the why is the hand so interested in Elektra? She's not that powerful. Is there something that they could use her for?
That's what I mean,
like some mystic
I don't remember
thing,
from
like
the comics.
Open some because they didn't explain what the hole was about either.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So there's other aspects to it, but like obviously like she's no more formidable than Daredevil,
physically,
really.
But like. Yeah, like in their, they're a cult of assassin types, so they want like the perfect assassin person.
No,
like,
but
not
why would even
superhuman.
like the good guys be so worried about it? They were worried about like, it'll coalesce them.
If I remember correctly, well, that's what they're arguing about. But if I remember correctly, in the comics, they believe that she was like a prophesied one, and the same thing happened where she dies and is resurrected by the hand and becomes one of their leaders for a while, because. Something to do with the prophecy, they feel it will allow them to resurrect all of their followers or something like that. And make them truly immortal or something.
Super weapon, but...
Right, but it'll fulfill their dark magic. Because that's the part that they were like,
we can't let them get this black sky weapon, they'll take over the world. It's like, it's just one good fighter who can take maybe 10 people on at a time, which is amazing, but not like some world-conquering weapon.
That brings me back to one other nitpick about the show. It was just something that I felt was... weakening the show overall in terms of feeling like it's a part of the Marvel universe. Like the show's great, and I love they don't try too hard to include like stuff from the movies.
Because you can't with all the overlap. Yeah,
but the characters should actually be talking about it. It's weird.
It makes no sense to like never even reference,
or like a guy's running around and they're talking about all these vigilantes. Like Daredevil. As in, that's the only one you've seen recently.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Nobody's mentioning that Captain America just took down helicarriers in DC.
Right, but they would be considered vigilantes, I guess.
Right, but I mean, that's the whole point of this third movie is that they are considered vigilantes, that they don't work for the government. You know, so now of course, it doesn't say when this one is supposed to be. It doesn't say when this is supposed to be taking place in relation to those movies, and maybe that's.
And also, there's also probably some. Not even legal, but licensing issues. Like,
well, it's all owned by Marvel. Marvel
is
licensed from Marvel.
They probably have very specific deals on.
You're
like,
right.
This Netflix is using this and referencing this. You guys are doing this and referencing this.
That's true because some lawyer somewhere is mad that if they use Thor's name, they'll get some
random
rights.
Lines of dialogue in the Netflix show could make like official canon or something that they have to now deal with in another movie and vice versa.
Right.
So even though it's not really realistic, it makes sense to keep it kind of encapsulated.
It makes sense, but it also would have been more satisfying to see every so often when they're talking about the weird stuff that happens. You know, just be like every so often when they were saying like that's impossible. I wanted one of them to say, "Dude, we just had a Norse god fight space aliens.
Or like a giant green dude fight space aliens. Don't talk to me about what's possible."
Right? Yeah, exactly. Do you remember that news story where a green, a green monster man fought off a sentient AI that raised a city into the sky?
Right.
You remember that?
Right.
Remember those?
Yeah. All right.
All right. Point taken.
Right.
You know,
something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just a couple throwaway lines here and there that makes it apparent that Daredevil's really not that weird anymore. You know.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but I did like the Punisher.
I like the focus of them just being on street level crime and, you know, shady underworld stuff. It's great for the show, but every so often you have to mention, since it's supposed to take place in that same world, you have to mention the Avengers exist. Right. You can't just be, the New York incident every
right,
time.
yeah, exactly.
It's like, another thing. The Avengers are on the news at this point every day.
Exactly. One thing that made that I wish they would have included, which I mean they did, like I said, just speaking of the Kingpin and how much better it is.
Yeah.
Would have been great to be like when he originally takes over to do it with brute force, basically.
Yeah.
Because he gets in there, he doesn't know anyone or whatever, and him to basically give him some sort of speech like, I didn't always have a huge network. I originally took over with power and just cave the guy's chest in and take like 4 guys at once, just like smash their heads together, kill them, and punch a hole in the one guy's chest.
Right, yeah.
And be like, I originally took over by just with power.
Right, yeah, exactly. That would have been a nice touch.
Right.
I think got kind of close where he played very
pop
deaf.
the guy's head.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they did show that he's awesomely powerful.
Where he and the Punisher kind of squared off for half a second.
Donkey Kongs him.
Like, and also when he smacks Matt around, like he just thinks, Matt's threatening his wife, and so he just all of a sudden is okay, takes the cuffs off and slams him on the table just 3 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what made me think of it. Is I'm like, originally this guy didn't do it all through conniving. He originally did it because if someone crossed him over, you could fucking kill him with his bare hands.
Right. But then he realized there was more power through.
Well, because he's also very Machiavellian and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. But originally it was out of fear of just him. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, it was nice little touch to then his rival that he had roughly assassinated. He's sitting there eating dinner beside him in the ICU, and stuff. And he's like, you're right. There can be only one Kingpin. It's like, all right, now this is the Kingpin.
I definitely liked him in this one a lot better than
It was a very short appearance, 2 episodes, and it was a better characterization than the last season.
He was more focused and just
threatening feeling.
Threatening,
not just a guy who was big and might throw a tantrum.
Well, he in the first one, it felt like he was just a CEO of this awesome organization. And was scared and worried about it, of working right and losing right, or losing the power. You know what I mean? He just felt fearful and petulant.
I'll have to say now, if this was the plan all along, then it was a master plan because it shows a transformation, and you just didn't see it enough in time.
My argument was that someone like that would never have gotten to that point.
Right.
You know what I mean? This shows why he was able, but if he wasn't like that already, then he wouldn't have been able to do it. But they were kind of setting up
the idea that he was a bit of an enabler for bigger, shadier organizations like the Hand and other actual super criminal organizations. Doing business with basically,
while keeping himself out
of it for the most part. So now he's actually running a criminal organization instead of being a facilitator for these criminal organizations. Yeah. But yeah, I still agree with our original assessment. He was a little bit weaker in the first season, and he's stronger in the second.
Right.
All right. We will move on from entertainment and go to the news and politics.
Quite a bit.
That fraught,
that
perilous,
frothy slough of of despondency.
Right. Yes. Exactly. That fetid ocean, teeming with sirens and rocks. Yes. Yeah. All right.
The never-ending trumpeting.
Right. Yes. The never-ending.
The rise of the God Emperor Trump.
God, we already have God Emperor Obama. Speaking of which, let's start off first with the Trump aide Michele Fields.
Fields and Corey Lewandowski event.
Right, yes, exactly.
Danger and Play has covered this pretty well, especially on his Twitter and everything.
Nothing I'm going to say is going to add detail to it, but it's such a debacle.
It just shows you what people are. I don't know. It shows you a lot, though.
Right. I almost have no more to comment on.
Yeah, there's just what do you say.
What do you say?
Yeah.
But for those who may not know, and for those who want to hear a little more, the point, for anyone who's been under a rock for a while, the point was some woman who was a Breitbart reporter, if I remember correctly, Breitbart reporter, she went to a Trump rally that was in Florida.
There was a press conference after one of the more recent.
It was some weeks ago at this point.
It was after one of the
just before
days,
right before the primaries,
Mar-a-Lago or one of his clubs or whatever.
It was when he was campaigning for the Florida primaries, and
I think it was afterwards. I think it was the victory speech.
Oh, was it?
I think so.
I thought it was before because
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like I said, anyway, it was during the whole Florida primaries push, and so he was down in Florida, and she went there as a reporter, and in the period at which he's leaving after the speech,
after the
and
questions.
He's kind of taking question here, question there,
he's just walking out.
He's walking out at this point. He's surrounded by all his people, Secret Service included, and initially, this person came out saying that the Corey Lewandowski person had grabbed her so violently she almost fell to the ground. She literally said, "Threw me to the ground." Then later she came back with in a audio transcript that of apparent recording of the event that she had taken with her own phone, and then never turned in the recording, just turned into audio transcript. Not suspicious at all. She turned in a transcript saying he almost threw me to the ground. I had to catch my balance, and like some other reporter that quote unquote corroborated was like, oh my god.
Well, I think, oh my god.
Except it was a guy, but he probably sounded like that.
We did. I've heard the audio.
Oh really? That guy sounds like
panty waist.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then the photographer that was with them or part of that event claimed not to have been there and wouldn't release his footage.
Post thing, and some guy on Twitter asked him like, "You were there. What did you see?" Because there was like none of this was on film or anything, and he was like, "Oh, I wasn't at that event," and the guy was like, "Bro, I have your picture right here. You're credited as being there." And he was like, then he deleted the tweet where he said it and was like, "I didn't see anything."
Right, yeah. He literally uploaded pictures from the event and put his name on them for copyright purposes.
It was uploaded by someone else, but they had been like credited.
Right, meaning like he sold them to AP. AP accredits to him by copyright law. They have
like Washington Post photographer, whatever this guy's name is.
Right. So anyway, there was proof that there were cameras there. Eventually, of course, the footage shows up. And
eventually, that's what's interesting. The footage that you see now was actually Trump released it because it was security footage from his facility.
Right. Well, the most recent eventually,
the one from the really overhead.
It's unfortunately like most security footage. It's only like every 5 seconds it takes a camera shot kind of thing.
Which that nowadays there's really no excuse for that. I think
there's still so much data in a day.
I guess if you wanted to run 24/7 on all these different cameras, you could rack up gig or terabytes of data pretty quick.
But it still is not that because, like, honestly, I've worked places that they just simply scrub it every day unless there's an incident.
Yeah, I still a whole scrub it a week, and you'd only need a few terabytes.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
some places that's just what they have installed already, so they don't pay to upgrade it
because
they
10
haven't
years later
needed
or something. Yeah.
But anyway, but it's still pretty clear that nothing so violent as anyone falling to the ground.
Okay, so now so there's video shows out that it looks like he did touch her, but what you see is like they're leaving really quickly.
In terms of brushing past.
She dives in between 2 Secret Service agents and actually touches Trump
to try to shove a recording device.
Right, she like grabs his arm and trips, and you see him like pull his arm away, and then he goes and like grabs her like almost by the elbow, kind of above the elbow, pushes her out of the way. And if you look at the video, he's not even looking at her. He's just like, get the fuck out of the way, I'm staying up with Trump kind of thing. Right. And the Secret Service agent has come out and said that she got in between it. And like...
we're reaching for it at the time, too.
Right.
Like the video clearly shows that the Secret Service agents were only beaten to it by the aide.
By Korendowski, his campaign manager. And then she's pressed charges, officially criminal charges against him.
Now, why this is all a big deal is because, A, it's a totally minor incident. People get manhandled in group events like that all the time.
Well, I mean, in the line at Subway or... You know, you'll get jostled more than that.
Secret Service has done this to people all the time because that's their job. Right. And other staff members for security purposes.
And she touched Trump.
Right. All that aside, though, what's so crazy about this situation is something that would be a minor incident that would not warrant any sort of assault charges.
Right.
And that was totally benign, or battery. Yeah, no battery charges or whatever. Or even if they were levied, it would never make news. You know, it would just be like, okay, somebody got upset that Secret Service and staff.
Totally backfiring on them, though, for the reason that they're using it to try and show his war on women narrative. Like, Trump is so mean to women. Look, his campaign manager is running around beating people up. Right. But all it's really shown is to everyone who's sane. If you're not sane, it doesn't matter because you think you're not going to like Trump anyway. Right. For people who are sane, they see the video and they're like, oh man, there's not much there. Barely grazed her, and then they also see where in a situation
people are
that and more
something terrible happened.
In my mind, in a situation where any other politician on the planet would just be like, "You need to resign. We're moving past this."
Right.
He stands up for his people. He's like fiercely loyal in a situation that is really not. It's bad for him publicly.
And again,
and he's like, "No, these are my guys. They're doing their job. We're going to fight for them," and that's awesome.
Exactly. This comes back to why
it's going to make him look better.
Some people, of course, don't like Trump on the right because they think. There's people who don't like Trump because they're establishment cucks and they hate anybody that's taking their power away or might. But then there's people who are like middle ground Republicans who think, oh, I might like Cruz better because he's more political
like
or
conservative,
quote unquote,
whatever that means.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. This is what's important though, is that they're not realizing that it kind of doesn't matter if he was Democrat once, or whatever. The point is that he's bringing a brand of just American conduct back instead of political conduct.
Is you can't focus on the letter next to somebody's name because that doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
There's a few stances that doesn't mean anything. Right, it's been proven because and
the Tea Party handed the Republicans so many victories that they squandered immediately.
Right, and there are issues that I was like, yes, I wish Trump believe differently on these. But the main point is that he is a nationalist who wants America to succeed, and he's actually cares about America succeeding. And I've talked before, like Hillary and Cruz, I honestly think are both just care about themselves succeeding, and they're establishing
just
people.
Career politicians.
Career politicians. Someone like Bernie is an honest person who cares about the underclass succeeding, but he doesn't care about America.
Right.
He's a Marxist and he cares about the underclass.
This ideology, and he can't accept it.
He's a much more he's a much more genuine person, but he's wrong, and he's not doing what's best for the country. Trump may or may not be wrong about what needs to be done, but he does actually care, and he's willing, as long as you care about succeeding and you don't have these locked in ideas of this is the way we have to do things, and you can change and figure out and do what's best, and he's shown his ability to do that. Right. And we I can't believe this. Just a second, we have people who are saying that he's not conservative enough. We should vote for someone like Cruz or even a Romney. And Trump is up there saying we should get rid of NATO and shit that we never even hear come out of the mouth of anyone other than Ron Paul or somebody.
Right.
And he's up there being like, yeah, maybe we should get rid of NATO. And they're not like jumping all. And this is someone who can win, probably will win.
Yeah, and I think it's really they just,
and they'd rather have
done
Romney,
this to Ron Paul or anybody else. But
just because what? Because he said something that uses childish language, they think, or because he once said he was against guns. First of all, I honestly think that he's changed his mind on that. I don't just think he's saying it.
Yeah.
And even if he hasn't, it doesn't matter. There's no politician in the world right now or in the U.S. right now that's going to get Americans to give up their guns. The only way that's going to happen is once the demographic shift changes. And the way that happens is, guess what? Illegal immigration. Right.
As we've talked about. Right. Now, what I was going to say is that's something, like you said, the kind of the no true, like he's not a true Republican, that kind of stuff. We were harped to death. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's that it doesn't really matter. It's not that even that Trump is the best candidate or the most perfect. It's that none of the others, all the others are the political class who are there to either keep their jobs as part of the bipartisan ruling faction and make sure the plebes don't get in, or they're transformationists that want, transformationists that want to transform into more socialist whatever kind of thing or something, or they're part of the corrupt crony system all around.
Right, because they keep their jobs if a Republican, establishment Republican like Jeb Bush or somebody wins.
Right.
But they also keep their jobs if an establishment Democrat wins. Because either way, the status quo of just Republicans versus Democrats, let's figure it out, let's cross the aisle, that rolls forward. With someone like Trump, they all lose their jobs. So that's why they'd rather him lose as a Republican than winning with, in their parties.
They'd rather have the DNC win than go behind their own candidate.
They'd rather have the Democrats win as long as it's a normal establishment Democrat.
It doesn't matter at this point whether you agree with him or not. And this was a funny line from Stefan Molyneux. I'm sure you know who he is. He put somebody was talking about this very thing, and I can't remember the exact words they were using, but he said Trump is not so much a candidate as a murder weapon that the American middle class is wielding against the corrupt establishment.
Exactly. There's no Republican and Democrat. There's just different flavors of globalists and then nationalists. Right now, Trump is the only nationalist candidate. Even someone like Ron Paul wasn't really a nationalist, and that was my main beefs with him. His work on the Federal Reserve and everything would still be
crucial, and if it had been done, it would have saved a lot of the country.
But he wasn't a nationalist. He was much more of like a standard libertarian who foolishly believes in open borders and things like that, which I totally disagree with.
Right.
Because I think I mentioned
everybody has their ideological points.
That I believe in private property, whether that's an individual or a group. Right. So that I believe in nationalism. You don't have to be like a fucking murderous nationalist or whatever.
No, that is a artificial assumption that came out from the anti-nationalism that they...
Well, from the hyper or ultra-nationalists.
Well, no, I'm saying what happened is the idea that nationalism is bad came about because of internationalism and leftism, and then when certain nationalist leftist groups came about, that's what they hated them so much, because they were bucking against the program.
Right, and they would automatically conflate them with the racist hyper-nationalists like the Nazi Party and stuff
and all that was because it was an overreaction to being forced into nationalism.
That's what I think people like Vox said, if you effectively beat a nationalist like Trump, the next time this issue comes up, it will be someone like a Hitler. Right. You know what I mean? The next nationalist candidate will be an ultra-nationalist.
People will take that as an endorsement for what the Nazis did. And
it's just cause and effect. Just cause and effect. Value statements have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, you can plan any number of things and hope it works, but if you don't acknowledge human behavior, then eventually human fear and human preferences and all aspects of humanity, both good and bad, eventually lead them to want a place that is theirs.
This is human nature. Subgroup. It's so bizarre to see people think and act like humans are fundamentally different than they were 100 or even 1,000 years ago. We're the same beings. Just like genetically and everything
have not been that substantial.
No, if there's been even any, you know.
Right.
But especially in like our minds and the thought process. So to think that like we're gonna do as a group do different things to these type of stimuluses just because we have fucking cell phones or something is ridiculous.
And it's a case too of too many organizations get built and then become this idea, whether it's a nation or a company or anything. And this is just a really abstract problem, but it's just one of those big human problems that organization gets built, and then instead of the organization adapting to the needs of the humans are supposed to be bent to the needs of this organization. And there's a certain amount of like, yes, you must discipline yourself to be more than just your animal meat, you know. So sometimes yes,
but not everyone can do that.
But not everyone can do that. And also overall, there's no point in having an organization like we made this to make our lives better. Then all of a sudden it's not making your lives better, but you still slave away making the organization exist.
That's my whole beef with this government in general. The whole point of government is to make everyone involved lives better. It's a herd thing where we are doing this as a group because it gets better results than doing it individually. But now it's become the government is actually a separate entity, and so it's taking from us just to support itself because, quote, it needs to exist. And like, no, that's just not true.
It's a parasite on the back of
no one joins a herd if it's like worse than being on your own on the Serengeti.
Right,
you know what I mean? You're in a herd because that gives you protection and stuff. There's certain sacrifices that you make as a result of doing it. But the net benefit is positive.
But when you have a system that is no longer civilizational but discivilizational, that's just parasitical, just
and not only that, but it's taking from you and giving less.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that you can do as a group that actually the end result is more than the sum of the inputs from each individual. Like something like building a road. You know, if each person had to go out there and build a mile of road right to their house, everything could be kind of shitty and be a mess. And that's not to say that we need government to build roads, but the idea is that doing it as a group gets better results than everyone trying to do it themselves.
Group work and organization has existed throughout time.
Right. You know, that's why I think that the idea of quote anarchy doesn't really make sense because it's not saying that. They say you can work together, and I'm like, well, that's all government is.
Right.
The only difference is when it becomes a government that's a
no
separate
longer
entity. It's no longer acting in the interest of the people. Right. And that's hard to tell exactly when that happens, but we're certainly at that stage now because people talk of things being done in the interest of government and the interest of like. Supreme Court rulings have said the police have an interest in this. I'm like, well, yeah, that's a problem,
right? Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Because obviously, should be just the
logically speaking, an entity can have interest in doing a lot of things that benefit it. The Nazis had an interest in killing all the Jews, logically speaking.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And
that helped
suited their interests,
right? Just fine, even from a logical standpoint.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like, and that's again, we'll stay away from too much of the abstract down that hole, but I mean.
But speaking of Trump, I'm worried about Wisconsin because if Trump loses, it doesn't end it for him. He can still win, obviously, and in fact, he still probably will win. But if Cruz loses Wisconsin, it's over. Like he's done. Like there's no way he can effectively stop. So I'm really hoping that Trump wins it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen just one or two articles that seem like a lot of the talk radio hosts and thing are the people who like. You know, Trump is not a real Republican or he's discivil and like again, this all comes back.
It doesn't mean anything,
right? Well, what it is that like, again, it's thinking with your feelings instead of with your brain.
Thinking with your fucking vagina is what they're doing,
right? Exactly, but that's why
people need to fucking stop drinking the birth control tainted water and get in the same room as a barbell every once in a decade.
Unfortunately why same room as a barbell.
Yeah.
That's why social justice crap has worked, is because they've tried to appeal to, like, nobody wants to look like a meanie.
No one wants to see me.
No one wants to see me.
It's literally more important to be perceived as nice by people who fucking fundamentally hate you and who you are.
That is a nice aspiration, but it's like you can't realize it's being used against you. These people are not realizing it's being used against you.
It's the same nice guy mentality writ large on the political scale.
To an extent, exactly. It's like you got told by somebody that being nice is important. And
you told by the women that if you're nice, we'll sleep with you and everything.
Right.
It doesn't really work that way.
Right.
It's not saying you have to be a torturing sadist, but you have to stand up for your interests.
You have to stand up for your interests, and you have to realize when they're convincing you because they want something.
And that's one of the things that I keep hearing is that people say that Trump is like thin-skinned, and I'm like, oh, give me a break. What's funny is that you see some projecting because the only time they ever will fight back is when they feel like thin-skinned. If they're thin-skinned, that's why they fight back. So they're not used to their politicians actually defending themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And he said a bunch of times, he's like, "Hey, look, I'm not mean or whatever, but if someone attacks me, you got to fight back. You know,
right?
The harder they come at you, the harder you got to go at them. And the one thing he did this awesome press conference, right before his latest actually town hall meeting, where he was just on a plane or whatever. Have you seen that one?
No, I've not.
It was awesome. He was just like blazingly in state, and it was like focused, but like intense, but like focused.
Yeah,
and it was just like killing it, dude. And one of the comments were like, "You're not being presidential," and he's like, nothing is presidential. It's like, you know what's presidential? Victory.
Right.
Victory's presidential.
Right.
It's just like, oh yes, tell him.
Right. Yeah.
Like you bring down furious anger.
Right. Yeah.
Great. And people are just not used to a powerful person who's willing to stand up for themselves or people in their country.
Right. Yeah. We've had a lot of like soft-willed, like, and that's also why we've been so bad off, because it was all about the appearance and not about the actual ideology,
the substance. Right.
Right. Not about the substance, whether either getting it done. And this reminds me of one of the things I want to get at, and I kind of fumbled through.
Well, before you get on that, this really quick goes back to the idea of what we said. Like, I would much rather have Bernie win than even like a Cruz, because at least those people are voting based on ideology and not based on just status quo bullshit.
Right.
At least you make people choose. A Bernie-Trump matchup is at least people saying, this is the direction I want the country to go.
We would be horrendously burdened under Bernie.
Oh,
it would ruin
destroy
our
the
economy.
country, yeah. But the economy's...
That would prove a point
to
some people. It might shake some people loose instead of kicking the can with Hillary.
And at least the people would
something.
be doing it because they really think that's what should be done. Even though it's wrong.
Even though it's wrong. Even though it's wrong, yeah.
I've got more respect for people who are true
believers.
believers.
I have respect for, some of those Islamic fighters, even though I think they're absolutely
wrong. Well, that's why
wrong.
when people say, like, oh, they're cowards, I'm like, that's bullshit. They're not cowards.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? But
they're cowards in some way. What I'll say
some of them are. But, like, they say that, like, to blow yourself up is a cowardly thing.
No, I don't think that. I think, overall... many of the methods of Islam is cowardly because it relies a lot on deception and and not like, strategically deceiving your enemy, but like coming in and being like, we come in peace, and then going, hey, I want free shit, shit. Oh, you get the free shit I want. Wage
but I'm just saying, like, in general, it doesn't matter. It's more about...
Right. But yeah, running in and strapping a bomb to your chest is not,
inherently a cowardly act.
I dare you to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can even see that in a lot of, like, media and stuff where the good guy like goes out with a bang by killing the aliens. They blow themselves up. Like, it's not cowardly.
Right. Yeah. To
take your enemy down. It's wrong because of who the targets are and your reasons for doing it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like, there's no individual tactic that can be. And this is what Fox. Like, people argue about like the tactic, like, oh, that makes him just like them if we do this. I'm like, no, bullshit. If you eye gouge a person coming into your house to rape your family, it's not a dirty technique. Right. Now, if you do it in a sanctioned MMA match, yeah, you're a dirty asshole. Right, but it's not the tactic that makes you evil. Right. It's your reasons and who you're doing it to.
Yeah, this is exactly in line with where I was going to go, was that I think a lot of the problem is, and this kind of stuff is all coming to the fore in this election, is people are confusing goals and methods.
Well, tactics and strategies.
And strategy. Goals
and tactics. Yeah.
Yeah. The goal is the most important part.
Right.
Method is very important because a lot of times, like, yes, one of the big problems with socialism is that it's got a very noble sounding goal, but none of its methods will work.
Right. And this isn't to say the ends justify the means. That's not always true.
Not at all what I'm saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is that first you must decide on the correct goal before you can even worry about the correct method.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So people... guys like Trump is, gaining the ground. Trump is gaining the ground he's gaining because he's talking about the goals that the mass of American people know need to be addressed. Right. Immigration, fixing our economy,
and certain
dealing
aspects,
with this BS PC correctness crap.
And certain aspects of that are things that would sometimes be cruel or wrong, but aren't always. Like some move, like quote unquote hitting below the belt. That's not always an inherently like bad or wrong thing. Like I said, if you're in a agreement to do some sort of sport, yeah, hitting below the belt is wrong. But if someone's like diving for a nuke button to kill millions of people, you're not gonna be like, well, I can't hit him in the balls. We'll be as bad as them. Like, it's just the worst thing I've ever heard. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Yeah. Or if a bad guy breaks into your house with a gun to kill you, to be like, oh, I can't shoot him. If he's using a gun, I'll be just as bad as him if I use a gun. Right, no, that's not how that works, you idiots.
Not how it works at all.
Yeah, it's not at all how it works. Now, there's certain things like rape or whatever. So if you go rape their families to be like, haha, now that I'm getting back at them. That's not the way that works either.
Right,
because that's something that's bad just because of what it is.
Right.
But not everything, not every tactic is bad just because of who uses it or whatever.
Right, just because the guy you're opposing
some of them are just a tactic.
Right.
That can be used poorly, just like the gun itself.
Right.
The gun can be used for evil or good.
Yeah, and
speaking
of
tactics
guns,
are that way.
Speaking of guns, this is another interesting, it was like a petition and then a meme surrounding it that made the rounds. I don't know if you saw this about like there was a petition to have like guns allowed at the center that the RNC was coming down.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it.
I heard that the Secret Service like
shut down.
Shut it down.
Okay, I'm not surprised. Well, what was interesting to me is the people I saw sharing it. I don't know who created the petition originally and what their like point they were trying to make is. They may have been
conservatives and Republicans sharing it,
right? Well, actually, no. The ones I saw were like the people who like the big Bernie anti-Trump supporters.
They thought they were being cute. Like,
if you sell like guns, well then let them sign this. If you really believe it.
Sure, let's do it.
Let's
do it.
That's
my point. Is those are all the people who were like, cool, yeah, that sounds great.
And that was just a funny fundamental difference of mindset thing. Like to them, they were like, I'll prove your hypocrisy because see, you really are scared of guns. I'm like, no, I actually want everyone to. I would feel safer if I knew every single other person.
Really do think that there's more guns that we're safer.
Right, like I knew that if anyone started some shit, there would be 1,000 other people in that room who were just average Joes who were like, no, I'm not watching this go down, and they would just blast into them. Like, do you not remember that we had these things called Tea Party rallies, and there were guys with guns there all the time, and you freaked out then, going, oh my God, look at this chaotic mess where they got guns in the open. Blood must be running in the streets. Right. Guess what? Nobody died.
Well, I saw a perfect meme recently that just showed some picture of like a Minuteman type statue, and it said there's 200 million guns and over 14 trillion rounds of ammo in the country. If legal gun owners were a problem, you'd know about it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like
it's the biggest army in the history of the world. The American gun owner.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The American impromptu militia, if roused to anger, would shake
the largest
the
army in the history of the world.
Yeah.
200 million.
You would
strong.
know.
Yeah.
You would know if
you would know about it.
Right. All right.
That's like the whole argument. Not to go on a wholly random tangent, but just with all these like us against them thing, like patriarchy against it. Like, look, if there was a war between men and women, you would know about it.
Right. That's just another example of that same paradigm.
That same
where it's
mindset.
like you think there's this boogeyman, but if they were really as virulent or violent, I guess, as you say they are, you would know.
Right. And dedicated to oppression.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. What if the right-leaning American gun owner really wanted to just start a race war or shoot people anytime they get angry and don't get their coffee at the truck stop, there would have been tons more deaths. You know? It turns out most of these gun deaths are happening in inner cities in places where the crime is already.
Well, it's funny because I was just talking to someone about this recently, where like on the global rank of murder rate, I think we're like 7th or something, somewhere in the 4th to 7th range. But if you take out, like, from the top, like, higher.
America is.
Right. Yeah. But if you take out Detroit, like, Milwaukee, New Orleans, and, I think 5 or less city centers, we drop to almost, second to last or third to last. Up there with, like, Norway and all these countries, and no one dies from it. Because it's not, like, so, I mean, it's nothing to, it's places, first of all, that don't have very many guns. Second of all, have certain demographic makeups that are different from the rest of the country. Right, for the most part. And usually are political makeups that are very one-sided as well. Right, yeah. They tend to be democratic enclaves of minority people stuck on Democratic, welfare and low police. They're all Democrat, they're all minority, and they're all super strict gun laws. Right. And that's where all the murders are. Sounds like a recipe. Almost every single one. Sounds like a proven recipe for probably problems. 9 out of 10 murders in this country are in those top 10 shitty cities. Right. Yep. Like Chicago and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. So, I'm trying to see if there was. But that's not something that they have to explain. That's something that the liberals or the minorities have to explain. Somehow that becomes a problem that the white people have to explain. Right. You know what I mean? That's the crazy. It's like if we went to like 7 different schools and got shitty grades in all of them, and instead of being like, dude, what the fuck is wrong? We're like, what's wrong with these schools? Why are they bigoted against us? Right. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's one possibility. Right. Yeah. I guess. Right. Yeah. You know what another one probably is? There's a 1 in 8 chance. Goddamn fuck up. Right. There's 8 factors here. Right. And 7 of them are the schools, and 1 of them is you. Right. Guess which one was consistent in all cases? Right. Huh. And that's not to say that, like I said, it's possible scientifically that the schools are all bigoted against you. Right. So let's do some science to figure that out. Let's science the shit out of that. Right, yeah. Of course they don't ever that. They repress that stuff. Cernovich on Twitter. He's like a savage on Twitter. It's awesome. It's hilarious. He posted, someone posted something about how evil white people are. And he's like, white people are horrible, racist, and can't be trusted. They should be walled off in their own country, away from everyone else.
Yeah. I think our dad even said that once. He was joking around.
I was like, ha, got him.
Yeah. Our dad was...
Because how do you respond to that? They can't. There's no answer.
Yeah, exactly.
When they're like, you're so big, you're like, you're right. We should be separated.
Our dad was emailing me something. He was like, doing the same kind of joke. I think he was like, oh yeah, like America's such an evil, racist, bigoted place. Like we should keep all the why do they keep coming here? Right. Like if it's so horrible, why do you want to show up? Go home. We're terrible. We're racist. We're bigoted. You're like, that'd be a funny tack to take.
Unsalvageable.
Like, yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say that next time. Like, yeah, you're right. We're horrible. We should just be walled off from the rest of the world.
Right, yeah, wall off in our own country.
Keep everyone else safe.
Everyone else safe.
They're like, yeah, wait, what?
Right, yeah, huh?
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Right, yeah. God, yeah, it's getting to that point where that's what's crazy about it, about all this stuff, is that it's so crazy how long... Let me back it up and just say it in a simple way.
Okay, I've got some... I'm trying
right, no, I'm just saying, I just realized there's a movie that can explain this. The most pernicious parasite is an idea. To quote Inception. And it's proven all too true. Because these dumb ideas have infected so much stuff and we're just bearing the stupid fruit of it.
Right. Yep. Here, pause this really quick. I want to show you this hilarious video that we can talk about.
And then we'll comment on it. Alright, well why don't you lead off with what video it's going to be.
It's called Trump equals Terminator.
Okay. I've heard of this.
It's really fun.
We'll be right back with our comments. You won't even know any time has passed. And we're back.
Now we're back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so anyways, the video is called Trump equals Terminator. Trump equals Terminator. It's just cute. It's not ridiculous.
It's like 30 seconds.
30 seconds. But there's another channel called Can't
Basically, they did a video where they took the scene from Terminator 2 where Terminator takes the shotgun from and the glasses and the bike from the guy. Right. And they put the bit where, Cruz was saying, hey, you can't beat Hillary. You're not going to beat Hillary. He's like, I'm beating you.
Right.
So how you think you're going to beat her,
Well, that's such a bizarre argument that I keep seeing. Is like all these people who say, like, okay, even if you don't want to vote for Trump, whatever, that's your thing. But to use the argument that he's not going to beat Hillary is like, okay, well, if according to the current polls, none of them are. Like, it's a lot closer with him than with any of the other candidates. So that's not a good enough reason. You know what I mean?
Because they assume that if they get somebody in there, everyone will fall in behind whoever the RNC candidate is.
And they won't.
Just to beat Hillary, and so they'll get all of the Republican votes. The problem is, Romney proved that wrong.
Right, Romney proved that
wrong.
Like what Dad would always say, which I think is maybe unfortunate, but it's also true, is that the Democrats or the liberals will vote against someone. Right. Like never Trump crowd. The conservatives / Republicans seem to need someone to vote for.
And that's partly it is an unfortunate thing that they're stuck in because it's not letting them win. But it's probably a good thing ideologically.
Which is more ideologically sound, right? They're not just going to vote for someone just because
they got labeled a boogeyman,
which is better. But until now, the Republican Party hasn't cared. They'd rather lose with a Romney than win with a Ron Paul or somebody,
exactly.
or with a Trump. But in this case,
it shows
he actually has widespread appeal. Like he's got something like 200,000 people in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, have switched parties to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
So he has maybe some of the diehards never Trumps will stay home. Sure.
The never Trumps and everything else, they hate him because he's not real Republican. It's like, yeah, you're right. He is more centrist, and that's why he has some of this appeal like this.
But to me, it's not even a centrist issue. Like he's not more centrist than a Romney or a McCain.
No.
You
but that's what I'm saying.
So
is
such
that
a horseshit argument.
He's centrist by an argument, but that's the problem. Is that both the Republicans and Democrats have proven that they are both on the scale of liberalism.
Right. They're not. There's this four quadrants. They're not on a limited government scale.
Right.
And yeah, Trump isn't either. But none of the other Republican candidates, except Ron Paul, ever were. Right. Or Rand Paul.
None of them are true libertarians, except for some people in the Libertarian Party, and they were never getting in, and they are wrong about the border.
So it's ridiculous to use that as an excuse now when you weren't against McCain, you weren't against Romney, you weren't against Bush. Right. They all were like that. Right. But now the only difference between him and his stances, which are also fairly centrist, but still more conservative than a Romney or a McCain probably,
still just better
is
for
that he's a nationalist, and they weren't. Yeah. They were globalists.
Right.
He's the only one who actually cares about the country.
Right.
They never did. So some of his prescriptive measures for the issues are not going to be right. But at least the end goal is what
he's trying goals and methods. You got to pick the guy who's going for the right goals, then debate the best method afterwards.
Right.
Because if you want to talk, that's another thing I see people try to talk they try to discredit the wall. It costs so much money. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
That's not true. You're like,
First of all, it's easily provable.
It's been proven that a wall works in Israel, in Turkey, in all these countries.
You know what country has a wall on its southern border?
Mexico.
Right,
Mexico. Turns out there's a wall on the southern border. Yes, so America has a much bigger wall to build. But even if it only works in a certain percentage, ideologically, it's still the correct move. You know,
right. And also, even if you
is
never
to make a move where you're saying we're not going to tolerate illegal immigration anymore.
You're setting a tone for like the administration in the country,
right?
Which I think,
and honestly, it'd be a better way to say, hey, you know what? We're gonna have. I don't care if they want to make work jobs for building a wall, and they say, guess what? Because we're building a wall to stop illegal immigration, guess what? I need to see the papers on everybody that's working on this wall. Right. You can only have American citizens. Oh, what? You're on welfare? Guess what? We got a job for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, that would actually be a good thing to do.
Right. And it doesn't even. I mean, the math arguments are bogus when you factor in how much transfer payments are going to illegal immigrants, how much money is being sent by them to Mexico instead of being put back into the economy. Right. Just stuff like that. Like, it's not even close.
And also, like I said, in the end, it just comes down to goal. Is your goal to make America good for Americans, or to use the American economy to fund other countries' pipe dreams?
They're globalists. They say the free trade stuff, their foreign policy, their immigration policy. It's not based on, to quote Office Space, is this good for the company? Right, it's based on their ideology of globalism.
Right, and just how much can they milk out of the current golden goose?
For whatever, they're draining. They're basically using America to give blood transfusions to the rest of the world at its own expense, and like that can't last forever, and it's not going to last much longer.
To satisfy their lifestyle and their sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Pathological altruism.
Yeah, and for some people it's probably due to power and stuff, but it's still short-sighted because they're killing the goose that's laying the golden eggs. Right,
and it's also, again, just goes back to the idea, like they have this idea that a special elite can rule all the peoples of the world. We just need to get all these dogs to get along. That's why multiculturalism is so important to them. Because if you think about it, equality just means sameness. They don't talk about it like that.
Right.
They say equality means everybody's equal.
It's like,
sameness. 1 + 1 = 2, meaning 1 + 1 is the same as 2. Right? So equality means sameness, and they just want to get everybody homogenized down, or even if they're not thinking about them, they just don't like it when these people that are ruling over here start bickering with these people that are ruling over here, and so I need them all to shut up because I can't deal with it when the Muslims don't want this and then the Christians
it's just
want
madness
that.
Because it's not even logical. They say every culture is worth the same, but we have to support these cultures' survival at the expense of our culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that makes no fucking sense.
Right, but I mean, even beyond that, I'm just talking about from a pure emotional standpoint, the elite, you've got the people like Bernie supporters that believe that multiculturalism will bring in a utopia.
Right.
And so they're just ideological fools.
Right, they're just wrong.
But then you get the people at the top who, some of them are those who grew up and got power, but I think some of them are literally just, they want their pets to get along. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They don't really care about multiculturalism. This is just many breeds of slaves that they need to stop fighting amongst each other.
Because it's fucking up their day, their work day.
My plans to have a globally running machine that constantly pumps out dollar bills for me is upset by your sectarian violence and your ideas for national, interest.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry, we were not serving you, masters.
Yeah, that's it. Some of them may mean to be good masters, but they mean to be masters, as the quote goes.
Right, yeah. And not masters from your stock and your kindred and your
and like we're saying,
nation.
It goes back to the whole idea of the government and the governance being a separate entity and not being like people working together for their own greater good.
Right.
They're actually it's a separate entity that's ruling over another entity.
And this has happened throughout history. It's funny because you can look
like
back.
Said, it's human nature.
You can look back at different kinds of government. We think of it something maybe just in line with this government, but like
this governance.
There had kingdoms, like a feudal system that went from that same spectrum. Smaller original feudal systems in which we may not like it now because it had power concentrated in one person's hands a lot more, and like a collection of barons and stuff. But they were by and of the people, more or less. They lived amongst them, they employed them, they had their land, gave them land, and they defended them with their armies. And then it would get to a big kingship that just needed to milk these people to fund their foreign policy plans to take over France or something.
Right, where you get a king in there who just saw the people as a resource instead of like a part of their overall entity.
Part of somebody to whom you had a sacred duty to uphold the borders against foreign Huns or something, like that. I mean, that's a simplification, of course, but human beings are never perfect. So, anyway, we're nearing up the 1 hour mark here, so any last topics in the news
I don't
that
think
struck your fancy?
Nothing.
There was plenty, but I can't even think of them now because this is one thing I will say.
I think some quick UFC stuff.
Okay, go ahead.
The summer's sick for UFC, by the way. A lot of big fights, and so they've made the UFC 200 main event a rematch between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz.
Okay,
and I think it's going to be at 155 this time instead of 170. And then they're actually having Frankie, what is his name? Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo fighting for an interim 145 championship because he's kind of been away for a while.
Right.
And then Cyborg is now in the UFC. She's fighting a catchweight fight at 140 first in about a month to make sure she can get down. Obviously, their plan is to have her fight at 135 because that's the only weight classes they have are 135 and 115. But she's in the UFC now, assuming she can make the weight.
So what has she been fighting at before?
145 for all her career.
Yeah, gotcha, yeah.
But she was on roids, so I mean, now she's, she's off the roids, she should be able to do it, but...
Right, yeah, I was going to say.
So we'll see.
145 is not huge for a woman. For a woman who's cutting weight, that's pretty huge, you know?
Yeah, she's fighting at 145.
Right.
She probably weighs like 160.
Right, yeah, exactly.
In shape, too, you know, not blowed out. But she did pop for steroids and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah.
And then we got, there's a bunch of stuff coming up. So, but that was it.
Interesting. All right. Well, what I was going to finish up with is one of the crazy things about all this is like every so often I'm going through Facebook or something,
right? And
I see all kinds of things. I just want to tear it apart. But I'm so weary. I'm so weary of these dumb memes with dumb ideas. Like you can't back down every rat that pops its head up.
I've given up. Now I've just been getting like. Rustling some jimmies, man.
Right, exactly. Exactly what I get. Like the time has come if you stand for the right things, just rustle some jimmies. Just stand for what you stand for instead of trying to counter their lies.
But don't be silent either.
Right,
just be like, fuck you, this is what I'm about, suck a dick.
Right. You cannot... We're at the point where there's too many lies blowing against us. We can't push back every error.
Well, also, you
just got to put up your shield and push
through. These aren't
through.
People who are looking for... They're not looking for answers. You know what I mean?
Right. It's one of those things that it's very easy. I'm just mentioning because it's an easy trap to fall in when you yourself are a person who likes to talk about ideas and
is willing to be reasoned out of a position.
Right. Exactly.
You know, if someone comes any position there's not a position I have that I'm totally unable to give up if presented with evidence and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's not a single position. Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
So, but these people are not like that.
Right, exactly.
They don't have questions, they have fears, you know what I mean? They're responding on fear and emotion.
That's a very good way to put it.
That's a Victor Pride quote. I love it, though. You don't have questions, you have fears, you know what I mean? They're not coming to you for information. They're asking questions because they want to bolster their decisions that they've already made, or something that they're afraid of.
Or assuage their fears.
Yeah, or assuage their fears, and they'll keep looking until they get
justify their fears.
Right, just like rationalization, yeah. So, I always like that quote, too.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave you with that ponderance, that good quote there. Make sure you have questions and not fears.
Right.
And just
push
forward.
Information, not for feelings.
Right. And moreover, just stand for what you stand for and don't be worried about always trying to convince people because...
So it's not going to happen.
Right.
And people respond to your strength as well. Like, dude, this guy's... Maybe there's something about this, man.
Right. Exactly. So. It's an easy trap to fall into when you like... convincing people because you yourself.
Well, when you have a self-image as someone who's willing, like I said, who's reasonable, you think people are trying to reason with you, then you respond to that. But you have to accept that they're not.
Or when you just have a personal interest in knowing what's right and wrong. Like I want to know the truth. Right. And so when you see something that's wrong, you're like, that's not right. I know that's not right. I can prove that's not right.
If you were wrong, you want someone to give you the information that proves you're wrong.
Right.
But that's not what they want.
No.
They're not even looking for
No, exactly. So you have to... It's a hard habit to break when you're of the mindset to seek the truth.
Right.
Is to stop trying to share the truth with those who don't want to hear it.
Don't throw your pearls before swine.
Exactly.
Let's go make some bacon.
Right. There you go. I can't top that one.
Exactly.
Don't throw the pearls before swine, just make the bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. English and English, we're out.
Peace.